Yeah, I'm Paul from Big Blue Door, and essentially, yeah, this one's around migrating content from Jadu into LGD. Why? Because I think as an agency, we know lots of clients who are using Jadu who want to move across for the benefits of LGD that we're kind of all aware of. And content is obviously a kind of major issue for people. Should they start fresh? Should they kind of migrate their content? And we quite regularly get customers who are kind of happy with their content, but kind of want the benefit of LGD. This actually has been our kind of second bite of the cherry for doing something like this. We worked with Worcestershire County Council back in 2022 on a non-LGD site actually to kind of migrate content. We found at the time the Jadu APIs weren't mature enough to kind of do a complete migration. Now working with the Royal Borough of Kingston-upon-Thames and essentially, yeah, having another go. So the client here, the requirement was to migrate Jadu categories. So think kind of taxonomies, all of their kind of media items. So images, documents, whether that's PDF, Word documents, CSVs, and so on. Pretty much all of their content types. So news, service pages, guide overviews, guide pages, events, directories. They kind of didn't have an equivalent of something like a kind of step by step, as it were. And particularly directories, kind of worth a mention. They've got kind of 9 or so different directories. The numbers there are the kind of the amount of equivalent nodes that we ended up migrating. Burial records worth a kind of big focus there, 84,000. So that was kind of particularly challenging. We basically split these out into different channels and different migrations so we could kind of run them independently. I've actually got on the call as well, Ben, who was our technical lead on this one, and Lawrence, who's our delivery lead. And essentially, this was very much a kind of back-end focused project. So senior Drupal dev, DevOps team as well, and kind of QA from a testing perspective. To kind of jump to where we've got to start with, we have basically managed to successfully migrate the content, directory records, all of those different channels, media items. So yeah, all of the kind of the images and documents. We've moved the Jadu downloads, that's kind of what they call them within Jadu, into an LGD paragraph component so that we could then kind of associate it with the specific service node, basically. We've done, yeah, just over 400 kind of downloads, over 200 events, 250 guide overviews, over 1,000 guide pages, 500 news items, and so on, and about 500 service pages. In some ways, the numbers don't really matter because once you've got the migration working, you can run this across exponential number of items. So going forwards, potentially for other clients, doesn't really matter whether you've got, you know, a small Jadu site or a large one, you can still handle it with this type of script. A little bit on the kind of methodology, kind of how we've done it, and a few points to note. The migration order is really important. We have found that we needed to do the categories, so the taxonomies first. So you have those as kind of the initial building block, then onto the kind of the downloads, so the media items and the images, the PDFs, and then the content types. That's essentially so that by the time you get to the content type, you can then knit it together with the appropriate, you know, PDFs, images, and then tag it with the category that's already been created. If you kind of did it the other way, you wouldn't have the category. You then have to kind of loop back to kind of do the knitting together part. Rate limits. We've seen quite a significant issue with rate limiting from the Jadu API. Essentially, they don't want to make this particularly easy for kind of obvious reasons. So we've had to slow down the migration so that it only makes a request every 3 seconds. Otherwise, we were basically hitting a kind of a technical block from their API. In terms of how we've done it, the Drupal migrate module, which lots of people will have used before, that's definitely been one of the kind of big building blocks, along with Migrate Plus. Migrate Plus has essentially helped us kind of link things together. That includes things like a process plugin and an entity lookup to basically then link your taxonomy with your image to your service node. So it kind of remembers as you're going through the migration that this image needs to be associated to this node and tagged in this particular way. We've also used the Migrate Tools part of Migrate Plus to help us kind of run terminal commands. So we can basically just keep rerunning the migration whenever we need. We've obviously had to run this multiple times over the lifetime of the of the contract, we can kind of see error messages, things like that. Requirements, we need the Jadu API, base URL, and then, yeah, you can do everything through Jenkins. That's kind of the automated pipeline that we've used. Quick notes, we've had a config page in Drupal to basically show you when the migrations run, how many items was run, any error messages, success messages, and so on. We applied the LGD theme totally separately, so we've kind of done that kind of independently. No migration of users or roles deliberately. This particular client wanted to go with SSO. They're moving to kind of Google for that. And then we've had to create service landing pages, service sub landing pages, separately to then kind of knit together with the migrated service nodes. But that's pretty quick once you've got the the bulk of your service nodes. Migration is complete. We're in private beta at the moment. I kind of haven't showed you the site because it looks like an LGD site basically. Public beta on the 14th of July, public launch on www on the 28th. It's been built as a Drupal module, but there are some client-specific bits there, essentially based on their kind of Jadu customization. So we think with some refinement, we could potentially share it back with the community. We'd need to do some kind of changing of hard-coded APIs and tidy up. And yeah, if there's a bit of demand, it might be something for the community fund. I was going to try and bend Will's ear, but maybe that's one for LGD camp.